It's me. Thank you.
How is parallel parking going these days?
There we go, back to that, I sucked at it. You know, because it's interesting, I remember way back when I was 16, a couple of weeks ago, you still
look like a baby.
Thank you, but you know you're gonna hit that curb. And I felt, and the guy was just like looking at me like, you're gonna hit the curb. It's over. And it's funny now when I back up a parallel park, my wife is great at backing up. She's like she's like, zoom. I'm just like, I'm checking. My kids are like, Dad, use the screen.
A little PTSD on that moment.
Yes. So.
One of my favorite films in cinema history is The Outsiders. It's a masterpiece. Is it true that it was the first book you read?
Yes, without my parents saying, do your homework. I was not a great reader. It's interesting because we have to do that for our work.
Yeah.
But I was, maybe I fell through the cracks in the early grade school time of reading and comprehension, because I was reading and daydreaming that I'd be on stage or in a movie or Gene Kelly or something like that. I was very influenced by those great old movies that Mom had on all the time when I was a kid. But yeah, The Outsiders I read it in 7th grade. And I just, I connected to those characters, the story, S.E. Hinton, the great S.E. Hinton, she was 16 years old when she wrote this book. And then having the opportunity to be in that movie, that one holds a special place. I mean, it just does. It just does. Thanks.
I was reading about, do you remember the pamphlet they made for The Outsiders?
Yes, I do. I think I have one in a bin in the basement somewhere.
So they put out this cool pamphlet, and each character got their own box, and it sort of accordion opened and closed, and they were on both sides. And I used to carry that with me everywhere I went because I wanted to be in the group so badly.
It's cool to be a greaser. I mean, it is. It just is.
Yeah, I was a greaser, not a soch, for sure. Although Cherry Valens,
come on.
Diane Lane. But how was the audition process with Francis Ford Coppola? It sounded like he did something very unique, not orthodox.
It's very unorthodox. Well, we all, every actor was in one big soundstage. Consider it like a room like this, and all the actors sitting around the perimeter, and Francis would call different actors to read different roles and mix and match. And so you're already sweating because you're in the room with one of the great filmmakers and storytellers in American cinema history.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in this movie because they love the book, and yet you're watching everyone's audition watching the reaction of the director. It was really unnerving, but he even talks about it. I've spoken to him about it in recent years as well. It was just really important to him to mix and match and see the chemistry, because these boys all knew each other and had history together. So it wasn't just like, okay, here's my 2 pages and you're out. And so it was very difficult, but worked out for me.
And it did, because, in your new memoir, which I've been reading, it's so beautiful. And the story about your wife that I loved so much was she was your girlfriend at the time. And is it true you took her to see the movie? I went to this sneak preview. I'd never seen The Karate Kid yet. And I sat in the back of the theater with my girlfriend, Phyllis, who is now my wife of 35 years. So I'm in the back of this movie theater watching this movie a month before it comes out. And it was just in concert. It was a love affair between the audience and what was happening on this screen. And they were rooting and cheering and crying and jeering, and whatever emotion was going on. It felt like they knew this kid. They cared so much for this kid. And there was this moment where I was just like, I'm this kid. This is crazy out of body. And it was just, it's been that ever since. It's really quite incredible. I know there's such goodwill with LaRusso, John Avildsen intercut your first audition with Pat Morita's.
You can see it on YouTube, and I write about it in the memoir, just that
that experience, how those words, listen, credit Robert Mark Kamen for a wonderful script. It all starts on the page. But that chemistry and the attitude of those characters were right there from the first reading. And then when I met Pat, who no one wanted they don't want Arnold from Happy Days in this movie. It was like, no, he's the wrong guy. The studio didn't want him. The producer didn't want him. And Avildsen and his casting director just put the tape in. And then he said, okay, let's get them together, me and Pat and myself.
Chemistry read.
And it was a chemistry. It was like a chemistry. I opened the door. Arnold was nowhere to be found. Miyagi was present. And it was the most effortless, easy, soulful magic I've ever experienced, and still is going on today.
I mean, we all love you so much. I assume that it's okay to speak on everyone's behalf, and I'm not an assuming person, but auditioning is like the most vulnerable, weird. It's like an awful process, but it's
really
like
is.
There's no choice in the matter. Have you ever had a nightmare audition story?
Well, yes. I allude to very often in success, the right actor gets the right part.
Yeah.
Because I'll get that. Hey, did you ever audition for Back to the Future? Or wait, didn't I hear that you were up for Ferris Bueller? And I'm like, you're in the running.
Yep.
You're auditioning. You're giving it your shot. And then at the end of it, when I look at Ferris Bueller is Matthew Broderick. Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly. And you go down this list. So dare I say, maybe Macchio is LaRusso. You know what I mean? It's just the right. It connects in that way. But certainly I've had my share of slipping and falling in front of it, but that's it. You got to try to fall forward, right?
I also just think your attitude is the right attitude because, we're all, if we've grown up in this industry and we're lucky enough to maintain longevity, you just have to either adapt. There's two roads. You adapt suffering from rejection or believing everything happens for a reason and that there's enough room for everybody.
That's right.
And there is no LaRusso without Macchio. That is for sure. I mean, you've lived a beautiful life, and you've brought us along for the ride in these iconic films. And Cobra Kai is, how much I am obsessed with it. We talked about it the last time you were on the show. It is so hard to reinvent and reimagine an iconic property and evolutionize it the way that they have and you guys have. And I'm so excited for your book. I'm so glad you're making all of our lives better. And, Waxing on the Karate Kid in Me is available now. It is filled with extraordinary stories from an extraordinary person.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much for coming here.
It's great to be here.